Welcome to another episode of the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. If you are watching live on one of our amazing social media channels, hey, do us a favor. Make sure to subscribe, share, like, comment, hit the bell, hit the button, and comment to us. I want to give a shout out to Kristen Minch, who chatted along in the last interview. We appreciate you. If you want to get all the episodes, you can go to engagingvirtualmeetings.online, get all the past episodes, and a new episode every Wednesday drops there too. In addition to that, the Engaging Conference is my personal invitation to you. Come join me and a good collection of my amazing friends for this year's Engaging Conference, The Secrets to Engagement, here on Summits, Masterclasses, and Conferences, October 1, 2, and 3. Go to this link right here if you want a free ticket. That's engagingvirtualmeetings.com/CON if you can't see that. Now, what you can see in just a moment is my amazing next guest. She's got 30 years of senior level executive management. She powerfully commands executive presence. She's helped people in over 40 countries. Wait till I tell you about being a global speaking fellow. Let's welcome my guest, Shelley Goldstein. Hi, Shelley. How are you?
John, with an introduction like that, I am feeling amazing.
Good, the show's ended. Let's go. Oh. We'll just end on a high note. Oh,
Yeah.
Shelley, thank you so much for joining. So Shelley and I met each other on our good friend Deb's Goals Chat Live, and she was one of the panelists who came along with our good friend Bobby Carlton, and so that's how we met. Shelley, what have you been doing since the last time I have seen you?
Wow. How much time do we have for this podcast?
And I'll just give it to wait, hold on a second. Wait, here comes the joke. And let's give it to Shelley.
There you go. Actually, I took part. You invited me to one of your events, and it was absolutely terrific. I mean, talk about knowing how to lead an event that is online and offline. It was captivating the whole way through. So I want to just congratulate you on that. That was one of the big moments, actually, between the last time I spoke to you.
I think that was the Star Marketing Summit. Is that correct?
Correct.
Good. Give a shout out to my good friend Sherry Prindle and Julie
Yeah.
Rocks, who helped create the Star Marketing Summit. So, Shelley, take a moment now. So, a few of my friends don't know who you are, so and they missed the podcast. You know, you got to go back and see Deb's podcast. But tell them, take a moment to tell them who Shelley is and what she does.
Well, I think about it this way. I have two voices. I think we all do, but it's that physical voice and it's that internal voice. I was the person that let that physical voice hold me back. And what ended up happening was when I learned how to tap into my internal voice, I realized that was really what was important. What I felt, what I had to say, what I believed in was the voice that trumped the physical limitations I was putting on myself. So if that tells you a little bit about me and who I am, it's that journey of finding out how important that voice was, raising my confidence and raising that voice to share with others.
So, you know, that journey, and it is a journey. I think, too, one of the important things that I have learned over the last 4 years is how important authenticity is for speaking. Right. So talk to me more. Like, what's the moment that you realized that you found a good portion of your voice, or that you felt like you found the authenticity that is your voice and not somebody else's voice that you might like?
Right. And you know, it's so interesting that, how do we find authenticity? We are authentic. We
It's right
are
here. I know.
original, right? And it's really just allowing that voice, that opinion to be expressed. That's what makes us authentic. So the journey was really sharing some of my most important mic drop moments in my life, things that I really believed in and were important to me about marketing, because I was doing a lot of marketing at the time, or it could be so many other different things. But when people responded to me, when my audiences respond to what I was sharing, I realized there was value. That was the authentic piece. And it was coming from me, and they connected it back to me. That's what I leaned into. I said, hey, I think I have something here. People really want to hear what I have to say. That inspired me to go further.
Okay, when you go further, so you say that executive presence, and I believe that executive virtual presence is another subset of executive presence. Because I can share with you that have seen a few top executives who didn't take their virtual presence very seriously, right? They took the sweats and the, right, the slipper approach. Maybe it's nice that we could, and that was nice for a period, but I still think that even here on virtual, that your presence is so important. So talk to me, what are some of the top things that you look for, or like the number one thing that you help people with in developing their executive presence?
Well, executive presence is really confidence, right? It's having that perceived image that we're confident. So we have to internalize that, going back to the internal voice. We have to believe that what we're saying and what we're doing has value. So if you're an executive and you're building a business, or you're an employee and you're doing a job really, really well, you know your stuff. You can be confident about that. So what's separating that from speaking about it and believing in it? And Queen Elizabeth had a great quote that I will share with you.
Hmm.
I have to be seen to be believed. And this is what she meant by it from a leadership standpoint, is you can't just, you have to speak it, and you have to also present yourself that way. So you have to match, to your point,
Right.
being online in the virtual world, even if you're on stage, match what you look outside to what you feel inside. Then you can bring those two things together.
So I love that part too, and I've been a member of EO, or Entrepreneurs Organization. So I've met a lot of business owners, and I want to hear that, because one of the other hardest pieces I think of executive presence is how can a leader sometimes needs to show vulnerability, or that they don't know something, and so what's a way they can do it that actually benefits their executive presence as opposed to harms it or hurts it?
Well, we all started somewhere. And you could say that about Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, a president of a United States. They all started somewhere. It
Yeah.
wasn't great, but those lessons learned helped them be great.
Mhm.
And acknowledging that, going back to your internal voice and saying, well, this hurt, this was bad, but here's what I learned. Or I know this, I can share this bit of information, but I don't know everything. That honesty and trust is what people connect to. That is also confidence. Not knowing is confidence as much as knowing something.
So virtual, of course, became a thing over the last 4 years. Well, maybe some executives were doing it. I love going back now and actually watching things like NCIS is a military, show, and they were doing video conferencing so long ago, right? It was like they were doing it all the time, and now it's come to like the everyday person. So I'm curious, Shelley. One, what happened to you personally when said pandemic grew out? Like, how did you adapt, or what did you like or hate about virtual? I'm okay with any answer.
Well, what's interesting is, having been a marketing executive for 15 years, I was online since, the early 2000s. Remember the splash page and this funny thing called MySpace that everybody was saying, what do we do with this? This is kind of weird, right? And we had these clunky things called Skype and GoToMeeting, and they were clunky. And so part of my job was hosting podcasts and webinars, literally. And I would write the scripts, and I would, in my so-called marketing hat, produce them, not really knowing what to do, but it was kind of like, oh, record live, there you go. And the thing happened along the way that I was frustrated, thinking, and remember, this is like mid 2000, 2010, 2012. And it's like, how do I know anybody's even listening to me? How do I know that anybody's paying attention? Because you were at a blank screen. You didn't have an audience like you have today.
Yeah.
So quite honestly, The onset of Zoom just made it spectacular. It brought the virtual world to the in-person world to the best, transported it, like Star Trek, you were there. And I thought that was just incredible. We had so many more tools. We have so many more tools. And this thing, even that you're doing, John, is, creating that event that works both a great experience for in-person and online. You're just proving that this is where it's going. This is, it can be done.
It can be done too. And the two biggest complaints, Shelley, that I hear people say is that it's too expensive and it's too complicated. And the show that you saw is using quite a bit of off the shelf equipment.
Mhm.
It gets to the part where it says, I mean, you need some money, but you don't need what I think a lot of professionals think, like $100,000 or more of equipment. You can do it with a lot less, and you actually own probably 50 to 60% of the existing equipment, and you could use that to be great too. So when Shelley Goldstein has attended virtual meetings in the past, what has to happen to keep Shelley engaged in that virtual meeting?
A great experience. A
Say
great
more.
experience. And what I mean by that is I want to feel like I'm really connected to what the person's saying, that the speaker is engaging and not afraid of a camera, that's more in tune to what they're offering. I want to not just sit there and listen. I was never great at lectures. Going to lectures bored me to death. I don't want to do that sitting on my duff all day watching an 8-hour conference. Have us get up, have us interact, have us chat and engage. The breakout rooms, there are so many ways to make it really engaging and fun. That's what I connect with. I also enjoy, just like we met in other rooms, the ability to follow up with people and
Mm.
have that connection after and build on that community. It's almost, well, it takes sharing your business card in a physical event that much further, because you could just go on LinkedIn, find them, and boom, send them a little note in your friends.
Yeah, and because some people said that you couldn't network on virtual, and I'm like, I'm getting more networking done ever. Because I can also go to like 6 networking events a day if I really, really wanted to. It's possible. And some people have figured it out. But so there is this great trend, right? The rest of the world is going back in person, and I gotta, adapt to that. In fact, I was a little slow. I bet so hard on in person that it was challenging last year. So I'd love to hear, what's your take on balance, Shelley, for virtual, hybrid, and in-person communication? I'm just curious what your personal viewpoint is.
Well, I'm so glad you asked that, because as you were talking, I was thinking, can we remember the days when in-person conferences were terrible? Like, oh, they were always great. Is that like a long gone, dream we had? Come on. I've spent the travel isn't always great. The travel can be really difficult. There were so many problems with it, or the speaker wasn't great.
Oh yeah.
It's all about a really good experience in person and, online. So it's the same recipe. Engagement, somebody who has a good program, people are involved. You're not just walking around lost. And even to your point, I have had so many more compelling conversations online in online meetings than I could in person. And it wasn't about the volume. It was actually more about the quality,
Yeah,
because
the
I couldn't
quality.
get around to meet as many people in person. And I do believe, listen, I'm not bashing in person. I think it's great. And you mentioned balance.
Yeah.
I think what's really great about in person is that human connection, that extra level of personal connection you could feel physically when you're in a room with people, and you get the energy in the room and the hype. That's great. But there is a degree of that can be transported online too. I think there's benefits to both. It's not one or the other. So for me, the balance is just do a little bit of both.
What's the most engaging conference that you've been to in the last 4 years, too? Then I'm just curious what you've been to.
Wow, the last one. Well, I don't know about 4 years, because, COVID kind of put a dent in things. But prior to that, I was going to tremendous conferences in in Vegas because that was the hub and they were just massive. But come to think of it, what just popped in my head was 2 years ago, I went to the fancy food show with a friend of mine. And you want to talk about a great experience? I ate my way through that conference. That made it a good experience. And people do love food in your booth. So when you feed them, they'll be there. They'll do anything.
Okay, so this thing right here, right? The fancy food show, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And this one apparently is going to be in New York City. And why was this so engaging for you? You know, because I just came from the Northwest Event Show, and so all the food people were out, right? Like the highlights were, oh my gosh, the coffee booth in the morning was packed because they were making free coffee for everyone. We're Seattle, and then the barbecue. The two barbecue places crushed it because they were serving enough food for lunch for sure, so you didn't have to go buy a lunch. So what was
Experiential.
engaging? What was engaging at that food show for you?
Experiential. It's everything you're talking about. It's the fact that I got to taste, touch, the senses are heightened. And
Mm.
that's what these events are all about. Can you heighten our senses? And if you do I'll tell you another, actually, recently I attended a Barry and Blue online event.
Oh yeah.
And prior to that, they sent me a huge box of goodies, which I
Yeah.
have tchotchkes and
Yeah.
emojis and books and bottles. And that
Yeah.
made the experience experiential in my own house.
The box is certainly something that developed over the last 4 years. So we send an envelope to every one of our attendees, our VIP attendees, and it has 24 items. Like this one is, so we have this is called the No Sorry Zone. So you never have to apologize in our meeting, Shelley, right? You know, unless you really hurt
I
our feelings.
love
So,
that.
but the second part is that this is actually a whiteboard. So you can make any sign that you want on, you know, and we
Brilliant.
give you the pen, right? The
Brilliant.
pen is actually a branded pen, right?
Of
And so you
course.
can so it's a whole kit like that, and it really
Beautiful.
things to help the the virtual experience. And so there is. Talk to me about that. Like this is kind of like not executive presence, but this is like community presence. When somebody sends you a GIF in the mail, like that got heightened value over the last 4 years. Why do you think that still works?
Well, because if you lack confidence and you're just in a event and you get to do this, at least you feel like you're participating. And maybe that feeling, that good feeling that you're part of a community
Yes.
makes you feel good. That's confidence.
Yeah.
You know, Warren Buffett said, about the shopping, the consumer experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll never forget whether you had a good or bad experience. So why not make it a great one? And that's what they'll remember, the food, right? The little gifts that you sent out. It's what it's all about.
Hmm. So, talk to me too. I was trying to think about like how does I was looking at presence here, right? Executive presence
Mm.
and geez.
It's a
What's new
perception.
on the executive presence list now? All right, here I'll share because I just talked to some people and they're trying to determine the training. Like they're in the L&D space for the executives, and a lot of executives like hot topic right now is like mental health and well-being for executives, right? So I'd love to hear what other trends are you hearing or seeing for executives that are happening now?
Well, what the clients I work with are telling me is their constituents and their audiences expect them to be Steve Jobs. They expect them to be not only brilliant at running and launching a business, but be super charismatic and a natural, or feeling like they're a natural speaker. And it's a lot of pressure and it's unfair because we do have that internal voice that holds us back. It doesn't mean you're bad at what you do. The good news is with that skill, you can learn to speak. You can learn to build that confidence muscle. And you could match that with your inner dialogue and the work you do. Yeah, I built this great company and get behind that, believe that. That piece, pulling those two things together, builds that executive presence because you're confident in what you're presenting, and you should be. You spent blood, sweat, and tears and hours building this thing. Who else would be confident about the product working? What's that moment that you can't share on why it's so good for you and why you're doing it?
It's funny because I am helping an executive for another company, and in the end, he self-identifies as the engineer. And it is an expectation, though, at some point that as an executive, you got to learn how to communicate and speak, even if that is not your strong point. And I know you're a member, right? A National Speakers Association. Which chapter are you in?
Los Angeles.
Oh, good.
Well,
Yeah,
actually,
SoCal.
Southern California.
Yeah, it's now SoCal. That's right. Yeah, and I'm heading to SoCal actually next month, so we'll have to make sure and see if we can find a time to catch up.
Oh, I'd love that. I'd
Yeah,
love that.
I'll be in LA working with another client. But the speaking as executive, especially for those executives where it is not their natural state, then they have to like do some work, right? They got to learn. And so I don't know, is that something that you help some of your executives do is to improve their speaking, at least to their internal audience, if not to the outside world?
Well, the answer is yes. That's what I do. I'm a corporate trainer when it comes to public speaking. But here's a question.
Hmm.
If anybody was hired, every company hired people based on their speaking skills, how many people would be working for the company?
Oh, everyone from NSA, but probably very few.
You know what?
Especially if you have engineers, like there are collections of peoples who traditionally or stereotypically are not great communicators, right? The more might be the more analytical style or the more data or something else like that, and not where speaking is one of their strong points.
Well, that goes back to the point you're good at what you do. And we're not great communicators. We were not great communicators before Zoom. We're not better communicators after Zoom. And it's not the pressure on the top guy or gal or person. It's the pressure all the way down the chain. At every level, you are a leader within your own realm of work.
Yeah.
We can benefit from being better communicators and communicating. If you're an engineer, that's fine. Nobody's asking you to be Martin Luther King or, speak in some great presence. No, we want you to be your authentic self, but holding back from even sharing what you believe as an engineer, what you believe as an accountant.
Yeah.
That's important stuff.
So, can you share a story without sharing a name or a company, right? Of like maybe an exec you got a chance to work with and how your work really transformed and maybe led to a result that could help either that leader or help that leader's company?
Mm, mm. Yes, I coached a person about 2 years ago. They are or became, a billionaire from their business that they launched right out of college, which they dropped out of.
Yeah.
And when they sold that organization, they felt they sold their identity with it. That was their identity. This big organization, this big Wahoo product.
Wow.
And it was great. It really was a Wahoo product, but the person felt void, like it was nothing because they sold it, gone, done. Bringing up those moments, those mic drop moments, those experiences of their journey really enabled that person to speak as a panelist on conferences and on podcasts about what they did.
Yep.
As part of who they are, not the identity of what the company was. So really stepping into his own brand, his own story, and celebrating that as his successes and failures, to your point.
Mm-hmm.
And that person at this point has several new businesses and really goes out of their way now to speak on podcasts about the story. And it's not like it's part of their past, it's part of who they are today. That confidence piece came from the coaching and training we did together.
Well, that's fantastic, and especially when it's not a travesty that's the event. Sometimes success can also beget an event that has to make somebody realize that they need to change, right? Or that they did something and you don't know this. This person doesn't know until they sell the company that they invested that much into their identity, into the company and not into themselves.
And you bring up a good point because you mentioned something about health trends. Well, Do you realize that when we hold back, when we live behind fear of speaking and fear of expression, it's actually bad for our health?
Yeah.
Our negative
Yeah.
toxins are filling our body and
Right.
we're not functioning at our optimum best.
Yeah.
That's not fair to yourself.
No. No. And it is. And it's still, as a reminder, right, for the rest of us who don't speak for a living, it's the number one fear.
Oh, honey, we all speak for a living. We all speak. I'm not teaching people how to speak. We're all speakers. If there are people that speak on stages, there are people that speak on podcasts like this, but we
Yeah.
all speak because we speak at home, we speak at the gym, we speak at the bar with our friends, we speak at the office, at the water cooler, if you still have one. We speak.
This feels like the part that you get to with an executive when they say they have the fear of speaking, and you're trying to show them that you're already doing it. Whether you're doing it or not doing it, you're doing it. So just might as well be good at it, for crying out loud, right?
Exactly. But you know what? Wear those shoes, own it. Step into that chair. Is it a throne or is it a chair you're sitting on? It's up in here.
Well, outstanding. Okay, we're on to our new section of this podcast, right? This is the speed round, and then I have a final question for you. All right,
Oh
so
my
I'm going to
gosh,
ask
I'm
you.
nervous.
I'm going to ask you. Oh, yes, you're nervous. Yes, right. Well, you answer questions all day long, so this is just a few more questions to answer. Okay. Okay, great. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and you answer them as fast as you can. Okay. Best woman executive.
I am so bad at names. Oh, Shelley's Alice.
There you go. Perfect. What company is that? I don't think I know.
Female quotient.
Oh, there's two for that. Okay. The person you know with the best executive presence.
Former President Obama, Barack Obama.
One of the greatest orators of all time. Okay. What's a confidence builder you give to somebody?
Are you sitting in a chair or a throne? Do you own what you believe in?
What? Wait. There we go. Okay, I got it.
I was wondering what the delay was on that. I'm like, did I bomb? Was that
Best person on MySpace.
Don't laugh. It launched a company I was working for at the time because it was very appropriate for what was going on. So it did have its place in time.
I know. Well, who is it?
Well, I was working for a martial arts equipment supply company at the time, and all of the fighters, the MMA fighters, early on, this is pre-UFC, they used MySpace to list all of their scores and wins and competitions. And we were able to create street teams just from that community of people, and had street teams all over the country taking pictures and putting on MySpace wearing the clothes with the brand of the equipment company.
Wow. Okay, we'll leave that there.
That's it. Just a minute. I don't even get like a cheer.
Oh, you want to cheer? Okay, well, how about this one? There we go. Well, how about this?
Thank you. I think that deserves a little bit more. Yes, thank you.
So it's funny. Weird Al Yankovic had a gigantic presence on MySpace, and he finally was able to cross it over to something. But that MySpace was good for some people. All right, your best Skype call.
Excuse me, I didn't hear that.
Your best Skype call.
You're going to laugh, but it was with my sister and her two boys. She was living in Sweden at the time, and it was winter, and she went out into the yard to take a Skype of the two little, my nephews were very young at the time, yeah. And a big gale wind came and knocked them right out of the screen.
Biggest webinar fail.
The organization posted the wrong link and nobody attended.
That happened in this last year for sure. Okay, your favorite NSA speaker shout out that is not me.
Robbie Samuels.
That's a Lamborghini, although Robbie would never drive a Lamborghini, but he's one of my fave too. That's so great. A skill that you're good at that's not for work.
Cooking,
Ooh, what kind of cooking?
anything.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm inviting myself to your house. And here's a last easy one. What's your wish for 2024? What's a wish you have for 2024?
That myself and everybody I engage with persists their dream. Persistent.
Oh, I had to give you big music.
Finally.
There we go. Thank you, Shelley. All right. So the last question of this amazing interview, thank you so much, Shelley, for your time, is
Oh, thank you.
what do you see in the future for virtual and hybrid, especially for executives? I would love that little particular angle. What do you think virtual and hybrid is going to do for executives?
Everything. I think there's going to be more of it.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, you read in my bio, I've coached people in well over 40 countries. I've lost count a long time ago. I don't know that I've been able to do that as a human being without being in the air every single day of my life. So it brings so many of us together. It's much more time efficient. And I think executives who are very busy building their businesses, very busy doing what they're really good at, saving time and money by doing more online events can really bring their organizations together, their productivity in a stronger, more meaningful and effective way, and introduce their services and products to generations of people they never even thought they could connect with. More
I would. Oh, I was saying thank you so much, Shelley. I went to a conference that was sponsored by Notified, and there was a networking period that was sponsored by my friends at Twine. And Twine is basically a Zoom add-on that will run speed networking correctly on Zoom because it's not really designed for that, so it's really hard. And it was so amazing that one of the meetings that I got, it was a 5-minute meeting, and it came on, and it turned out to be the CEO of Notified was actually there, and I actually made a connection with them. We had some people that we knew, but I thought it was really impressive that the CEO, and now it was his conference, but still, some CEOs don't do this, was in his conference and was networking with like other members and customers, right? And
bravo,
yeah, and I
bravo.
think that executive, you just came in and like gave me the idea. Like if I was an executive of like some big company, I wonder what the difference would be like you flying around trying to see as many people as person as opposed to, right, having short meetings, but short virtual one-on-one meetings with as many people in your organization as possible. Which one would be more valuable? Like I don't know, but I just suspect that you could at least have more meetings.
I will tell you something that parallels that beautiful scenario you just presented is when Facebook was first opening up to businesses and you were an individual, they did not have business accounts. People connected to the individual who was the owner of the company usually. And typically that owner was not on the website. They were not on Facebook all day. It was the marketing team that was on Facebook. Later, Facebook added the company. Now, I know things have taken a slightly different direction, obviously, since then, but people stayed on the person's site because they were connecting with the individual and it made a huge difference. They felt, wow, I'm talking to the CEO, just like what you're saying. I'm connecting with the VP of what, and why not have that connection? Why should we be isolated either in our back room working or our ivory tower?
Yeah.
Isn't that great to have that interaction and that flexibility to connect with people? It
Yeah.
helps a brand for sure.
And that's what I think is, I had that same impression when I was in college. And in college as a student, you don't usually get access to professors. But because I emailed him, he actually replied and he replied in less than a second. I'm like, that's why email is going to be so valuable, even though some days, we don't like it, because there is that possibility. Well, one is that executives treated email different than other stuff. And that number two is that if you are on, you can have that expediency. You can actually get that immediate reply, and you'll be like, "Oh, it's amazing that I connected with this person so fast." So, Shelley, how about this? If you could wave the magic wand and get somebody to remember one thing from this interview, what would you want that one thing to be?
You have two voices, an internal voice and a physical voice. Think of how important your internal voice, your internal beliefs are, and let that lead you to be a powerful physical and external speaker so we can know your truth.
Outstanding, Shelley. Thank you so much for that. And that, because I think the imposter syndrome thing is some people's internal voices are maybe not so kind to some people, even though outwardly they're very, very, very successful. So, Shelley, thank you so much for that. Now, wait, I do have one last message. I don't usually use this with people. Are you ready for your final message?
I am, with a little bit of excitement.
Here we go.
Thank you for attending the performance. And a special thanks to all those who helped with the show.
Thank you, Shelley, for being here on the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. We appreciate you.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you and your whole entire audience. This was really a great way to end the week.
Outstanding. Thank you, Shelley. All right, this is John Chen. I'm here again on the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. We just finished talking with Shelley Goldstein, who really said to you, right? Well, while you might work on your external executive present voice, what are you doing about your internal executive present voice? And when I say executive, I mean all of y'all, right? I mean, the parents in the house, right? The volunteers in the house. You're all executives too. You're all executives of at least your own life, if not a few others. So speaking of which, if you are an executive, hey, subscribe, share, like, and comment on this podcast. You can get all the episodes here at engagingvirtualmeetings.online. And if you got it this far into the interview, you might as well take a free ticket to engagingvirtualmeetings.com/con for our Engaging Conference on October 1, 2, and 3, and every October in every year. Thank you, Shelley Goldstein. Thank you so much. And we'll see you on the next episode here of Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. We'll see you next time.
Drawing star people and keep old people. Show you got heart. Now we're playing the game and we're totally scoring. Learning how to make a virtual business boring. Showing up every morning, ready for the show. I'ma get ready. Gold Engaging Virtual Meetings 2.0.
And the live stream is out. Thank you, Shelley, and welcome back. So
Hey, just get it right on the paycheck. That's all I say.
I'll have to like a Hannah Fulbline, right?
You know what? I am a firm supporter of blooper reels. I think sometimes it's more interesting than the actual real thing. We have shows around blooper reels.
Yeah.
I think that's, it's human. Now I know you're not an AI virtual host. You're a real human being.
That's right. That's right. Despite all this is still human. That's right. So, although you can always do these things, what I should do is when I make a flub like that, maybe I should do this. Well, that's the show. Right. I had it. I thought I had the. Where's my other avatar? We had this one because it was a friend's. She likes West Cowboy, or she loves country music.
Right? You know what I would like to see? I would like to see a little avatar slipping on a banana peel. That would be cute.
There we go. Well, good. Well, I hope you enjoy that. If you wait a minute.
That was really fun.